Hey everyone, welcome to the Foundry by Forge College. Let's jump right in. Today we are opening up the engineering schematics for a dynamic proxy engine. If you've ever scratched your head wondering how on earth developers manage to update smart contracts without actually changing their addresses, well, you're in the right place. We're going to decode the magic behind dynamic proxies and really understand the engine that makes them tick.
Here is our blueprint for this explainer. First, the upgradeability dilemma. Second, splitting code and storage. Third, the delegatecall engine. Fourth, storage collision hazards. Fifth, 3 essential mental models. And finally, summary and next steps.
Section 1. The upgradeability dilemma. The immutability paradox. So, let's acknowledge the massive elephant in the room. This is the absolute biggest pain point of deploying to the EVM. If you caught our previous lesson, Foundations of Vulnerability Analysis, you know we spent a lot of time learning how to spot critical bugs. But here's the terrifying paradox, right? Say you find a critical bug in your live system. Smart contracts are immutable. You can't just push a quick update to an app store. The code is literally written in stone. So how exactly do we fix a system that flat out refuses to change? Section 2. Splitting code and storage. The magic trick? To solve this immutability problem, we kind of have to perform a magic trick. We literally have to separate the brain of our application from the body. Enter the dynamic proxy. This is essentially the canonical address, the main storefront that all your users interact with. But here's the kicker. It doesn't actually contain the business logic. Instead, it forwards those interactions to a completely separate, reusable logic module called the implementation contract. The proxy holds on to all the user data and state, while the implementation just acts as the rulebook. This brings us to the core mantra of the proxy pattern. Proxy owns the storage, implementation supplies the code. Seriously, I need you to memorize this one. Print it out, put it on your fridge. When we want to upgrade our contract, we don't touch the proxy. We just point that proxy to a brand new implementation contract. The code changes, sure, but all that precious user storage, it stays exactly where it is. Section 3. The delegatecall engine, EVM primitives. Now, splitting code and storage sounds amazing in theory, but how does the blockchain actually pull it off? Well, it uses a very specific EVM primitive. Think about a standard call. It's like sending a letter to another contract and asking it to do something with its own data. But a delegate call, entirely different beast. It executes the target's code, but, and this is absolutely crucial, it keeps the caller's storage, the caller's balance, and the original msg.sender context. It's basically like borrowing someone else's recipe, but cooking it in your own kitchen using your own ingredients. Let's walk through this chronologically to see how this delegate call engine fires on all cylinders. Step 1. The user sends a transaction to the proxy. Step 2. The proxy says, hey, I don't have the logic for this. Let me delegate call the implementation. Step 3. The implementation code executes. But because it's a delegate call, any changes it makes to the variables are saved right back into the proxy state, not the implementations. The implementation is just this transient ghost that possesses the proxy for a millisecond, does the math, and then leaves. Section 4. Storage collision hazards. Warning labels. Of course, engineering schematics are pretty useless if they don't explicitly warn you about the explosion risks, right? So, what happens if your shiny new version 2 implementation inserts new variables right at the top of the storage layout? Well, the EVM assigns storage slots sequentially. If you shift the layout in your new code, that new code will completely misinterpret what the old proxy data means. It is exactly like a contractor installing a toilet in the middle of your kitchen because the blueprint shifted by 10 feet. You end up with a catastrophic mess. So here is the fix. You must always use layout discipline. We're talking ordered, append-only variables. If you need new variables in version 2, you tack them onto the very bottom of the list. No exceptions. You never, ever insert them at the top or in the middle. Alternatively, you can use explicitly reserved admin slots by hashing strings to find random unoccupied places in storage. Either way, you need a disciplined engineering fix to prevent silent state corruption during an upgrade. Section 5. 3 essential mental models. Organizing EVM mechanics. Because these EVM mechanics can get a little abstract, I'm going to give you 3 essential analogies to keep firmly organized in your mental toolbox. We've got mail forwarding for understanding callers and storage, a house blueprint for layout discipline, and library borrowing for code reuse. First up, the mail forwarding model. Imagine the proxy as your permanent physical mailbox. The implementation, that's just a script you hand to an assistant. When mail arrives, the assistant reads the script, but they write all their answers directly into the mailbox. If you fire that assistant and hire a new one with a new script, the new assistant still writes in that exact same mailbox. This perfectly illustrates why switching assistants or upgrading implementations doesn't destroy your user's mail. Model 2 is the house blueprint. This reinforces our collision hazard from earlier. The proxy's storage layout is the physical house. The implementation is the contractor's blueprint. If you update the blueprint for the contractor without making sure the room dimensions still line up with the physical house, boom, the contractor puts the plumbing in the living room. Ordered append-only variable growth is basically required to protect against these kind of contractor miscommunications. Finally, Model 3, library borrowing. Think of the implementation as a completely stateless public library, and the proxy is a student's personal workspace. The student borrows the books from the library, but does all their highlighting and note-taking back in their own workspace. Because of this dynamic, standard constructors in implementation contracts are basically useless. They only affect the library, not the student's workspace. If you want to initialize state for your proxy, you have to use special initializer functions that run through the proxy itself. Section 6. Summary and next steps. Wrapping up. This theoretical foundation is incredibly important as we prepare to apply these principles to the rest of the Advanced Solidity Project's composability course. Just remember this golden rule derived directly from our architecture. Proxy equals storage owner, implementation equals code supplier. They are forever held together by the powerful glue of the delegate call. If you keep this invariant in mind, you are going to avoid the vast majority of upgradability bugs out there. So what's next? In our next explainer, we're taking this theory and applying it directly to the code with proxy setup strategies for dynamic proxies. We'll get our hands dirty with concrete initialization flows, see how admin access is enforced safely, and build out the checklists you need to validate a deployment before you even think about hitting upgrade. So I'll leave you with this. Are you ready to initialize your proxy safely without accidentally overwriting your own application state? It's a tricky path for sure, but you now have the blueprint. I highly encourage you to head over to forge.college to dive deeper into this subject, expand your Web3 learning, and truly master these advanced setups. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.